But today, we must take a wider look. Because of modern communication and modern technology, the whole world has become our neighborhood. And we are demographically moving closer and closer to each other, and we've become a neighborhood without becoming a brotherhood.
Journeyman is a platform where men can lay down their titles, grow together, learn from each other, and be accountable to each other. Many of us deal with several problems throughout our lives, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. At times, we may feel alone in our troubles. However, Journeyman is a space where you can feel safe expressing yourself with other men that are on the same path. Journeyman is a space for people like myself who never thought they would be living purposefully in their life. How's that?
Still no sound.
Oh man, we're having troubles.
Welcome to the rehearsal, everybody.
Yeah, there's
Welcome
no sound.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Let's no sound, Zeke.
There it goes.
You're good? Or is
You got
that
sound
coming
now?
from the room?
I think it's only coming through one mic though.
Let's
Test.
see.
Test. Mine's on.
Yeah.
All right.
Can you hear us?
Somebody said yes. We can hear you now.
Okay, let's see here. Let me check something. Give us a second.
Yeah, I think it's good now.
Oh, you got some good stuff. What are we paying you for?
How's that? Yeah, exactly.
What are we paying you for?
How's that?
Are we good?
Well, yeah. We good?
Our
man.
intern Zeke. How far back do we got to go? Do I got to tell my zebra story again?
Oh, jeez.
Do I got to tell my zebra? Because that was just off the fly, so I don't know if I can remember all of it. Oh,
that deserves one. That's my fault.
Welcome to Journeyman
Welcome
Podcast.
to Journeyman. So here, let's start over again. No, just kidding. No, but we are here with Sharpen. If you can barely hear us, sorry about that. We've had some technical issues, but man, we just haven't even dived into the meat yet. So Michael Baldwin is starting with his story from Chicago. So go from there, man.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Chicago. You know, the west side of Chicago. I think is the best side of Chicago.
Yeah, okay.
I'm kind of biased though. Right? So I grew up with two households basically that I grew up in. I had my mom and my stepdad and my dad and my stepmom. And my mom, you was technically the hood. But my dad was in the suburbs. And so I always found myself craving being in the suburbs with my dad because it was just no drama there. You know, to this day, like my dad is one of the most stable people I've ever met in my life. His phone number is the same phone number that I first originally learned.
Wow.
Right? He lives in the same house that he has ever lived in. And in my family and in my culture, that's unheard of.
Right.
And
change
so,
your number. I hear
man, you know, and my dad, to this day, I've never heard him use a cuss word.
Wow.
You know, he's a phenomenal man, you know, and so, but at my mom's house, I know that I've been loved my whole life, right?
Yeah.
But the neighborhood and the community that I grew up in didn't always make me feel that way. And so my mom got this wise idea that she was going to send me to the suburban school. And out of all of her kids, you know, I was the one that was selected to go to this school, man.
Yeah.
And I misunderstood that decision in my youth. You know, I thought that she was sending me because she didn't like me. And because when I got to this all-white grammar school, it was only 16 of us blacks that was there. And I had to catch a yellow school bus down the street from my house in the neighborhood. And all of my friends saw me getting on this bus. And they thought that I thought I was better than them.
Wow.
And so when I came home from school, some of them was waiting on me.
Yeah.
Every day. And I used to run from them. I'd take off from right off the bus, running, you know. And I ran pretty fast. And so they really could catch me, right? But one time they did catch me. And they put a whooping on me. And that's all I can believe. I mean, in my mind, I just felt like that's all I needed to do was get home to my mom and everything is going to be all right. And I can remember walking into the kitchen and my mother was in the kitchen. And, you know, back in the day when, they smoked that cigarette and that cigarette sitting on their lip and you had that long ash, right? And I can remember walking in and she was in the kitchen.
That's good.
And on a bar stool with that long ash. And I'm like snot running out of my nose. My clothes is torn up. And she could tell what I'm getting ready to tell her.
Yeah.
And she looked at me with that look and told me, boy, don't you run up in here telling me somebody done whooped on you. You get yours out of here and go fight. And I can remember sucking up my tears, man. And I don't think I ever ran again. And what I mean by run again is I never really asked for help again. I never walked away from a challenge. I felt like my mama sanctioned me to fight and to whoop on you.
Yeah.
And she used to tell me, you know, if you don't whoop them, I'm going to whoop you. And I know now, at the time I misunderstood my mom, but I know today that she just didn't want me to be no coward.
Right.
She didn't want me to be no chicken. She didn't want me to be bullied and picked on every day. I took what she said literally. and I looked for fights. I remember that next day at school when I got off that yellow bus, I dropped my book bag and I'm like, what's up? And I began fighting that day. And I could fight pretty good. I didn't even know I could fight that good.
Yeah.
And I would take a weapon and, now it was on. And so from that point on, for one, I didn't believe in asking for help. And I definitely wasn't going to ask my mama for help.
Yeah.
And I didn't run no more. And there was times when I should have ran. And I just didn't run.
Yeah.
And so as I got older, I can remember, man, I ended up, graduating tops in my class from that school. And then I went to one of the best high schools in Chicago. It was called a School Without Walls. And but by the time I got there, I was already like, I became a father as a freshman.
Yeah.
I had my first kid. As a freshman in high school, I went to school with a baby, right? And I can remember like walking into the bathroom of the high school, and it was all of the cool dudes in there, and they was snorting these lines. They had a dollar bill rolled up, and it just looked so cool, man, And they was like, "Hey, man, you want some? Come on, try some." And something on the inside of me didn't give me permission to say no. It felt like if I said no, that the world was going to end for me. Like everything like I thought it was going to be over. So you can't say no. Don't back down.
Yeah.
Right. And so I went and I grabbed it and I can remember like the drip in my throat, like, and I was like, oh, dang. And I got like lightheaded and my stomach got kind of dizzy, but it wasn't what it made me feel that I really remembered the most.
Yeah.
It was what I didn't feel no more. That was the first time in my life, brother, where I didn't feel no fear. I didn't feel no shame. I didn't feel no guilt. Because see, what nobody knew is that I had been being molested since I was 6. That nobody knew that I felt ashamed for being black, for having buck teeth and big lips, and I peed in the bed. Nobody knew that I was a bedwetter and that I got whoopings for wetting the bed. And it felt like I was getting whooping for blinking my eyes because everything in my power wouldn't allow me to stop wetting the bed. And all of these things had been screwing me up on the inside and I hadn't told a soul. But when I snorted this line, poof, it was gone.
Yeah.
In my mind, I thought I had found my cure. Brother, I couldn't wait to I went home like that day, my world changed.
Yeah.
And I was cured.
Right.
So, I mean, I that next day, I went looking for these dudes. I was hanging out with them because I wanted what they had. And I didn't even know what it was called at the time. It took me about 3 or 4 days before I knew what it was. And it took me about a week before I knew where they got it. And I was pitching in. And about 3 weeks passed and I was buying my own. And I wasn't telling nobody.
Yeah. Wow.
I had my own stash. And I used heroin. I used heroin from that day until I was about 19 years old.
Wow.
And I had my first kid as that freshman. Then I had my second kid about a year and a half later.
Yeah.
And then my third kid a year after that. I was having baby after baby. It would take me until I was about like 17, almost 18 years old. And I had like 3 weeks left till graduation. And I just quit school.
Wow.
Because I was still getting good grades because I was smart.
Right.
And it didn't take a lot of effort for me that it took for other people. It just came easy.
Yeah.
But I was like raggedy. My life was raggedy and I was trying to be a dad. I had no idea what fatherhood was about.
Right.
And I couldn't ask for help because I can't run.
Yeah.
I can't run from this responsibility.
Wow.
So I'm pretending
So
to
good.
know what I'm doing. Like
So
I
good.
can remember like not knowing how to do with this baby. And my first daughter, my mom, this girl that I didn't have this baby with, my mom told her she can come and live at our house with us. So I got a live-in girlfriend and I'm 15 years old.
Wow.
And I got a live-in girlfriend and a baby. And they all in my room with me. And I can't touch this girl no more because I didn't seen this baby come out of her.
Right.
So I didn't seen what a vagina do, right? And I wasn't supposed to see that.
No, I hear you. 15 years old.
It traumatized me. I couldn't
Yes.
even touch this girl no more,
Yeah.
right? But she wanted me to touch her, but I can't touch her. If nothing in me will let me touch her. But I'm trying to take care of this baby, and the mother of my daughter was detached from the baby, so she couldn't touch her. So my baby, I'm waking up early to go to school, and I'm changing her diaper, and I'm putting her clothes on, and I'm feeding her a bottle, and I lay her in the bed. When I come home, she got the same diaper on. Mom ain't touched her at all. And so my mother told me, she was like, boy, you got to let that girl go home to her mama, or she ain't gonna never be a good mother. And I cried, but I ain't let nobody see me cry. So I told the girl she had to leave. And then she started playing games with my baby. Wouldn't let me see the baby because I didn't want to be with her no more. And she started playing these little mind trips on me. And I loved my daughter. I had never loved anything, but I loved my daughter in such a way that I was willing to sacrifice anything for her. And my mother told me something. She said, boy, you know you can have more kids. I was like, wow, I sure can. And I stopped using like contraceptive. That was just never, to this day, I didn't get the birds and bees talking till later in my life.
Yeah.
At that point, only thing I knew was that my manhood was found between the legs of a woman, and I was digging for it. So I needed my manhood. And then I was told that my manhood was going to be coming from these dudes, these homies that I was rolling with. That then I had to have a pistol. I had to have some money. I had to sell drugs. Like all of these things was, how I was going to become a man.
Yeah.
And so I was going to be a man. And I didn't realize that I was trying to cover up this abuse that had happened to me, and that I was really like hiding from it. I would eventually, after I quit high school, I just became a full-time loser, right? I became a full-time loser, man. I was like, I lived, and I never went to sleep ever without some dope that I could wake up to. I just never went to sleep without at least a wake up. And it would take me until like 19 years old, and I woke up one day and I just was like, I can't do this no more. I wasn't even having fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like, when in the beginning I got high because of what it really like, I didn't have to feel. Now it wasn't working no more. It wasn't working. I had to use more. I would steal. I would do anything to get it. And I went to my mother and I told her, Ma, I've been getting high and I can't stop. And that was one of the most terrifying days of my life, because I was so afraid of what she would say to me. I was so sensitive to my mother's words and to the words that people said to me that I would rather you hit me upside my head with a baseball bat than to say certain things to me. I was just emotionally sensitive, man, that words hurt me so bad. And I didn't know why until later in my life, but my mother surprised me. She called my dad and told my dad, hey, I need you to come over here. Mike just admitted. They all knew, but I hid it so well that they never caught me, right? And I respected them enough not to just do it in their face, right? But they knew that I was a dope fiend, and I was in denial. And my dad came over to the house, man, and I told them, and they put me in a rehab. They put me in a detox. It wasn't a rehab. I understand rehab today, but at the time, they put me in a spot where they gave me methadone to medically detox me from heroin so that it don't kill me, right? And I stayed in this program for about 40 days. And in my mind, while I was there, it was like Chicago and heroin is my problem. If I can just get out of Chicago and if I can stay away from heroin, everything gonna be fine. And in my mind, my sister she had moved from Chicago and moved to California, Sacramento. And she used to send pictures of the palm trees. In my mind, the palm trees was going to save everything. Right? Get to the palm trees, boy. Just get to the palm trees.
There's no heroin in California.
Yeah. The palm trees is everything. And so I told my sister I wanted to come to California, and she said, just come on. And so a woman that I had 2 kids with. I told her that I was going to California when I got out of this program and that she needed to leave now. And so she left and was waiting on me. When I got out of this program, they didn't really do recovery stuff with me. They just helped me to kick. And I came out and I'm fresh and everybody telling me how good I'm doing. The program then told me don't leave, but they don't know better than I do. So within 7 days, I was on my way to California on the first thing smoking. And I went to Sacramento. I turned 20 years old in Sacramento. And I became a co-owner of a barbershop and life was good. Everybody was telling me how good I'm doing. We got our own apartment and I got a car and but on the inside, I'm screaming. I'm hating this because I'm hating my life because I thought that if I got sober that everything was going to be fine. And it wasn't fine. And I didn't know what to do. I thought about going back to Chicago and just bringing some dope with me. I was going to try something to make me feel better. Nothing was making me better. And this dude, you know, I had been out there for about 9 months, and this dude that used to come to the barbershop had asked me for a ride one day. And I told him no. Me and my girl had gotten into an argument. And we got into an argument because I had a son. One of my son's birthday was coming up. His birthday is in September, and she had threw all of my phone numbers away. This was before cell phones, right? This was, you know, before
pages.
I had a pager, right?
Yeah.
I had a pager and stuff, but this was before you could store your phone number someplace else. I had a phone book, right?
Okay.
And she had threw my phone book away because now I'm not in Chicago. She thinking she can have me all to herself. So she got to get rid of everybody else. And I was pissed off because it was my son's birthday coming up and I wanted to be able to call him. And that gave me an excuse to leave the house. And I left the house on a mission to do whatever. And I ran into this youngster and he asked me for a ride. And I told him that I couldn't give him a ride, but he begged me. And then he told me that he had this girl that would do anything if I gave him a ride. So I'm like, all right, what's she look like? Before I know it, I was in the hotel room with this dude and his girlfriend, and they gave me she did what she was gonna do.
Right.
And then they was smoking some stuff. And I asked him, is that heroin? And she said, hell no. And I'm like, all right. She's like, you want to try some? I'm like, as long as it ain't heroin, I ain't got no problem with nothing else. I only got a problem with heroin. It turned out to be methamphetamine. I had never even heard of meth. At 1991, 1992, black people didn't use meth. It wasn't in Chicago.
Right.
And so I'm like, it can't hurt me. I ended up staying with them for 3 days, man. Didn't eat, didn't drink no water, just got high. They ended up telling me that they had got some drugs from somebody who was bunk, and the dude didn't want to give the money back, and just long story. And they like, man, you want to go with us to get this? Like, yeah, come on, what's up? You know, I'm from Chicago, man. You know, nobody taking nothing from us. Next thing I know, man, long story short, I ended up turning 21 in San Quentin with a double life sentence. Kidnap, robbery, and attempted rape was my charges. And my life was over. It took me 4 months in the judicial system for me to be arrested and on my way to prison with a double life sentence because I got tricked. And they told me that if I pled guilty, that I would do 10 years. I couldn't run. So, I couldn't call my mom and ask for no help. They asking me, hey, do you need us to get an attorney? No, I got this. And I had never been in the criminal justice system a day in my life. I had never been arrested. I had never had no experience with that lifestyle. But I wasn't no good guy. I just hadn't been in no trouble with the police. And I find myself in this county jail. And I'm in El Dorado County. I'm the only black in this whole county jail. And I'm afraid, but I'm violent now because I don't get afraid. I get violent. And I cover up my fear with violence. Before I knew it, man, I was on my way to San Quentin. I had pled guilty. They revoked any deal and gave me 2 life sentences running bow-legged. First time in prison. And my life is gone. I can remember being in San Quentin and I'm working out, and these dudes had a butane can, and this other guy was working out next to about 2 guys away from me. And I'm like, I see what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And they spraying butane on this dude
Mm.
and lit him on fire.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh man,
Mm-hmm.
how am I gonna live in this?
Mm-hmm.
I ain't gonna be no victim.
Mm.
I just would I would say this to myself over and over and
Mm.
over again. And these brothers came on the tier one day saying, Takbir, Allahu Akbar, Takbir, Allahu Akbar.
Mm.
And it was Muslims. They came to my cell door and they was like, youngster, you want to go with us? I was like, yeah. And I went with them, man. I went to their service, and to this day, I respect Islam, but I became a Muslim that day.
Mm-hmm.
And I started it was one of the, as I look back in hindsight, it was God's divine providence in my life
Mm-hmm.
that sent me to this group of individuals that I didn't have to change a whole lot, but they taught me discipline. I'm 21, turning 22 years old, and I'm got a double life sentence. I'm at the peak of my hormones. I'm at the peak of so many things, and prison has everything in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an alternative lifestyle that you can be adapted to if you don't know how to control certain parts of yourself. But I became a Muslim that day, and now I left San Quentin and went to Calipatria, which is on the Mexico-Calexico border.
Mm-hmm.
And 16 hours for anybody in my family that was in Sacramento to come and see me, so I didn't get any visits.
Mm-hmm.
And I became a soldier.
Mm.
And I became a soldier, I was fierce
Mm-hmm.
and I was violent. And they put me in charge of the library, the Islamic library.
Mm.
So I read everything in there. And these soldiers, these brothers, man, would put me on what they call itikaf, which is like retreat. They took my TV from me, and they would collect my mail every day, and I would get my mail every 3 days, and I could watch TV every 3 days. And I was learning this discipline and this self-control, and it was building me a different part of me. And I was learning how to read. And when I first got to the county jail, they had force medicated me because I was violent, and they thought that I was uncontrollable, but I was really afraid, and I wasn't gonna let them hurt me.
Yeah.
And so they had gave me Thorazine and Milleril,
Wow.
and so I was like what they call a JCAT.
Mm-hmm.
I was mentally ill, and I told them that I was hearing voices because I was, but it was my conscience. I hadn't heard my conscience in my life.
Right.
Because
Wow.
trauma was over my conscience, and then addiction was over my conscience. So this voice that I was hearing on the inside of me sounded strange.
Yeah.
And so I told them, and then I was violent on top of that. So it was easy for them to get a court order to medicate me, and they did.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I got to Calipatria, these OGs weaned me off of medication, and my sleep was disturbed. They just really just raised me.
Mm-hmm.
And before I knew it, I was back to myself, and I was starting to thaw out, and my mind was thawing out. And I can remember watching these dudes run inside of what they call a program office. It's like the police station.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in the library at the time, and it was 5/5/95, Cinco de Mayo, 8 o'clock in the morning. About 10 brothers ran inside of there, and they stabbed all of the COs in there. And I'm in the chapel, which is right next door to the police station. And I'm peeking out the door, and it's like pandemonium, man.
So inmates ran into.
Yeah.
They ran inside of the police, and they
like
stabbed all of the police that was in there.
Wow.
Until other police came in, and it was like craziness, brother, right? That day was like a pivotal day in my life to really understand where I'm at. And it was just craziness. I've been shot at on the basketball court because I had this problem with being called a nigger. If somebody called me a nigger, I don't care if he was black, white, orange, or whatever, we was gonna fight.
Yeah.
And I was really dangerous. And eventually I left Calipatria and went to another institution, but when I got to this other institution, they placed me in leadership of the Islamic community. I became the imam of the community. And so I'm responsible for about 70 brothers. And I'm leading them and I'm guiding them. And then I left that institution and went to another institution. And again, they placed me in leadership. And I had this experience, man, where I was asleep. And I got this young soldier in the cell. And I have a dream that I'm on my knees in a position of prayer. And I'm looking at this figure and I can see a screw through his third toe. And I wake up out of my sleep because it's like this feeling of guilt, overwhelming guilt that I done done this to this individual. And I never felt this feeling before. And I had this dream like 3, almost 4 days in a row. And I went and I called my stepmom, who was the most spiritual person in my life. She's the only person in my family that accepted me as a Muslim.
Yeah.
Because my name wasn't Michael.
Right.
My mama told me, don't you ever call my house telling me your name is anything other than Michael.
Right.
And so I would be on the phone. I'd be like, on the phone and say your name after the beep. I say, Michael. Right?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want nobody to know my name. Right.
Michael.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody knew my name. Nobody in prison knew my name was Michael.
Yeah.
And they used to call me Sadiq.
Wow.
Sabikun Awalun. That was my name. And I called and I told my stepmom that I had this dream. I think I'm having a nervous breakdown. I'm getting ready to sign up to go to mental health. And I hadn't taken no pills, no medication, no nothing. Today I got 24 years sober. And so I had started being sober already.
Yeah.
But she told me, man, you ain't having a mental breakdown. That's Jesus calling you. Wow. I'm like, what are you gonna bother me now for?
Give me chills.
Like, like why he want me now?
Yeah.
Why he gonna bother me now? He wasn't there when I needed him. Why he gonna bother me now? She said, baby, you know what's happening in your spirit.
Yeah.
You can either accept it or reject it. And I stood there because I knew that, man, these dudes gonna want to kill me. And I had trained these dudes. I used to talk Christians out of their faith. I didn't train these brothers to fight, to battle, to destroy somebody if they walk away from this, because we operated different.
Militant.
Man, for real. And so I told her, okay, what do I have to do? She said, go get somebody you trust and bring them to the phone. I went and got this brother named Marlon. He was a Christian, but he was a soldier and he loved me. Right?
Yeah.
He didn't care what.
Right.
I brought Marlon to the phone. And I brought one Muslim brother to the phone. And I just told him, I just need y'all to stand here, man. I don't know what I'm supposed to do right now. And so my stepmama, she walked me through the prayer with them brothers as a witness.
Wow.
And I accepted Christ that day in my life.
Wow.
And the Muslim brother, he just broke down and started crying because he was like, Mike, you know what this means? You know what this means, brother?
He was crying because he knew he had to turn on you.
Yeah. And I went to the cell, and at the time it was a warden by the name of Scott Kernan. He eventually became the director of corrections, but me and him was kind of cool because there were times on the yard where I could regulate some things.
Yeah.
And I could stop some things from happening that was about to happen. And so I was popular. And he had heard about, I got a note that came under the door that told me, you know, you got to leave, bro, right? Or katil, fi So we're going to cut your throat in the name of God. And the warden sent a message to me telling me that, you know, he wanted me to show up to work change, which is like where his office is behind this thing. And so I went, and he told me, I heard what's going on the yard and I want to send you to a different yard. And I was like, nah, man, you know, you got to let whatever's going to happen has to happen. He's like, nah, man, I believe that you ready for something different. I was like, man, what's different? And he said, well, we got a different yard that you can go to. And I was like, what do you mean a different yard? I'm not going to no PC. I'm not doing none of that. I'm not, no, man, man, let them bring it. And he said, no, I just want you to try it. Just try it. If you don't like it, you can go. I'll transfer you anywhere you want to go, but I don't want no bloodshed on my yards. I told him, okay, I'll try it. So the next day, this officer came and got me, and they took me and they put me in a hole, and then they sent me over to this other yard. And when I got to this other yard, it was like people were walking without their shoes on.
Mm-hmm.
I had never seen people on the yard without their shoes on, not unless they were crazy.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And people were sitting on the grass, like just chilling.
Mm-hmm.
And long story short, man, I adapted.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of the best experiences of my life, going to that type of an environment. And I had this dude walk up to me on the yard and ask me who hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
I had never had anybody
Mm-hmm.
in my entire life ask me who hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been told, what's wrong with you?
Mm-hmm.
Straighten up. What? Can't you just do this right?
Mm-hmm.
What? I had never had anybody, not no teachers, not no parents, not nobody, ask me what this man, his name was Richard Mexico. Richard walked up to me. He was an old dude. And he asked me, youngster, who hurt you?
Wow.
And I told him the truth.
Mm.
I ended up telling this man my whole life.
Mm.
And he didn't judge me.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up being really my first friend, man.
Mm.
He ended up like introducing me to myself.
Mm.
And I started working on myself from that point forward.
Mm.
And I eventually, about a week after that, I had a dream that I had left my kids.
Mm.
Up until this point, I hadn't really even thought about my kids. I was a father.
Mm-hmm.
6 babies. I had 6 babies, man, at about 21.
Wow.
And I had left my babies, man, and it was the first time in my life to where they really mattered, where I hadn't thought about them with shoes. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
I was like in a fog, man, and him asking me that just broke something on the inside of me, and it changed the course of my life.
Yeah.
And I started walking with Christ, and I was wobbly for a long time, like just didn't know where I belonged.
Because
Even-
you're still locked up at this time.
I'm
Yeah.
in prison.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm locked up, man. And I started changing on. I had already went back to school. I had got my high school diploma, and then I went and got a GED because I just was bored. And I had started getting some college courses, but him asking me that kind of like set me on fire, man. And I became a drug and alcohol specialist and a paralegal because now, I went to the parole board a little bit after that, and I thought that I was going to get a chance to come home. And this was in like 99, close to 2000, and the parole board told me that I was doing everything that I was supposed to do, but they didn't want to see me again for 10 years.
Mm.
And that they was going to allow me to start my second life sentence. And I was like, what do you mean? Like,
Right.
at the time, I didn't even understand what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
And I became a paralegal because I wanted to understand my sentence. I wanted to understand, how did I let them do this to me?
Mm.
I thought I
So
was just
good.
going to do 10 years, man. And now you're telling me you don't want to see me for 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
I can't do 10 years, man. How the hell am I going to do 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Richard telling me, man, Mike, the good thing is you ain't got to do 10 years.
Mm.
He said, all you got to do is today.
Wow. That's good. Wow. So good.
And I was like, dang, all I got to do is today.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing one day at a time, man. And I made a commitment that when I left out of that cell every morning, that I was going to pour it all out. And I made a commitment that if I was going to die in prison, that I was going to die. And I used to tell my family, when you see me and you get my body, if I die up in here, look underneath my nails, because you're going to see dirt.
Mm.
I'm going to be scratching and clawing
Mm-hmm.
to get up out of here. And I made a commitment that I was just going to change the person I was. And I did. I started being honest. I started looking for ways to study my peers. I started studying and asking questions to my friends. And I used to let flies land on me and not shoo them away.
Mm.
And I would use that. A fly was like a thought or an emotion, because I was so interactive, with my thoughts and emotions. If I thought something, I did something. If I felt something, I did something. It was it was so automatic, man, that it was like other people's voices were the loudest voices in my head. My voice was not loud in my head.
Mm.
I heard my mama, I heard my friends, I heard everybody else's voice was louder than my own voice, and the voice of God I couldn't even understand because everybody else was in charge of me. It's like everybody else, I was a puppet.
That's so good.
And I had decided, man, that I was going to divorce people out of my head, including people that I loved, but they just didn't understand me.
Yeah.
And I accepted that I was going to be different and I wasn't going to fit in. And then having this charge that I had on me wasn't a popular thing. And I started talking about it on a prison yard, and I didn't give a damn. I needed to understand it. I needed to understand, why did I accept that on my life? Why did I accept that? Why was God allowing me to sit in this situation with these labels? What did I need to understand about it? And I understood that the abuse that happened to me was permeating the men around me. It was just there, and nobody could talk about real stuff. And so I had to be somebody that was going to talk about real stuff.
So good.
And I had to be willing to take whatever came with it. And there was some drama that came with it. One of the most intense experiences of my life came, and it was in like 2009. I had an individual walk up to me on a prison yard in the day room, call me a nigger, and spit in my face. And man, for the first time in my life, I felt like a man because I ain't do nothing.
Oh, jeez. Man.
And it wasn't even hard.
Yeah.
It wasn't hard because I had already started. Like a year before that, I had a friend of mine named Noah that I used to tell him, man, every time you see me, I need you to call me a nigger. And he used to be a skinhead. And every time he seen me, he said, you nigger. And I can remember the first time he said that to me, man, I didn't told this man to say this to me.
Yeah.
But everything in my body was like burning to smash his face in. And I didn't, because I knew I had asked him to do this. And so over time, it had lost its power. And on that day, when that dude did that, I had already gained mastery over myself, not to react to it. And about a month later, this dude ended up hanging himself in Adseg. And I realize now when I look back that the enemy had him.
So good.
And he was trying to take me out, and with him. And the dude in his suicide note had mentioned me. And they called me into the program office and let me see what this dude had wrote. And he was apologizing to me because I had helped this dude. And he said that he thought that I was going to kill him. He wanted to die. And he wanted me to kill him. He wanted me to be the person that killed him. And he was apologizing because he never meant to offend me like that. And he knew that it hurt me. And I would go to the parole board. I got denied parole 3 more times. I got denied parole one time for writing a poem because I became a poet in prison. I didn't even know I was a poet. I didn't know until I didn't have nobody I could talk to.
Yeah.
But I had stuff in me that I had to get out, and I would write about it. And the first poem that I ever wrote was about my family, because my mama, when I used to call home, she would tell me, boy, we coming to see you. We coming to see you. And so every Friday, I would be ready for a visit.
Yeah.
I would get up my hair cut. I would cut my own hair. I'd get my clothes ready. And I would go out and I'd play sports. But even in the middle of a basketball game, I'm listening for my name, right? I'm listening for them to call my name for a visit. Because my mama said she coming.
Yeah.
The longest stretch I waited for a visit was 7 years with no visits.
Oh.
And it was torturing me until I wrote this poem. And it go like this. It said, 3 o'clock Sunday morning, I wish you never exist. Because 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon means another visit I've missed. On Friday by noon, man, I'm consistently groomed. Because my mama always told me, boy, I'd be to see you soon. So I always stayed ready so I never had to get ready. Boy, you should have seen me the last time I seen my daddy. I was sharp as a tack, and that's a well-known fact. But I tell you, brother, I am no lover of 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon. I wish I can howl at it like a wolf at the moon. Get away from me 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon. You always seem to come way too soon. When I wrote that poem, it set me free.
Wow.
Because at 3 o'clock on Sunday mean ain't nobody coming. And I always noticed the clock at 3 o'clock on Sunday. Every week. And it meant that I had to put them clothes up, and maybe next week.
Yeah.
And I stopped looking for them. And I became at peace about it because it was starting to make me resent my family.
Wow.
And I had placed myself there, not them. And that poem set me free from resenting them. But I can recall one of the poems that I got denied parole from. It was called Black Lives Matter. And somebody just seen the title. They never read the poem.
Of course.
And at the time, they thought somebody snitched and told the police that I wrote this poem called Black Lives Matter. And at the time, Black Lives Matter wasn't a popular thing. It was like, it was controversial, and it was like an instigating thing. And so if they would have read the poem, they would have understood that I was actually writing that poem to my hometown of Chicago, and I was challenging them. And I'm only going to read a couple of verses of the poem. But
how long ago was this poem that you?
What year?
This poem was written in 2015, 2016.
Wow.
No, 2015.
That long ago.
Yeah.
2015.
Wow.
2015, I wrote this poem, and it said, Black lives matter. When will they matter to Black people? When it comes to putting each other in pine boxes, we have no equal. We got preachers lying and mothers crying, trying to eulogize a brother before he could even live. Pain is all he knew to give, never understood how to heal, let alone feel. So if Black lives matter, when they gonna matter to Black people? And it goes on, it's a little bit deeper than that, but we got, and I got denied parole because of that, but they denied me confidentially. So they didn't tell me why they denied me. They just told me, they asked me, was I part of any hate groups? I told them no. And I didn't know what they was talking about. It wasn't until later that an officer that was familiar with me pulled me over and said, hey, did you write a Black Lives Matter poem? I told him, yeah. He said, that's why they denied you parole.
Wow.
And I was like, God. Another time they denied me parole because they asked me, when was the last time I threatened someone? And I had changed, so I wasn't really threatening nobody. But I told them I hadn't. And they told me that I was lying. And I told them, what do you mean? And they denied me 3 years of parole. And it wasn't until I came back after the parole hearing and this officer pulled me over and said, hey, man, I want you to see something in your file. And he took me into a room. He wasn't supposed to do this.
Yeah.
And he showed me my file. And it had a situation in there where this youngster came back to prison, and he told them that they can't send me back that they couldn't send him to the yard that I was on because I was going to kill him. And this youngster was a cellie of mine.
Wow.
And I had raised this boy up, and I walked him to the gate on the day he was paroling. And I told him, man, don't ever come back. You know better now. If you come back, I'm going to whoop your ass. And he believed me.
Wow.
And he came back. And when he was in the R&R on his way to the yards, he said, don't send me to Mike Baldwin's yard.
Oh, wow.
And they said, why? He said, because if I go to Mike Baldwin's yard, he going to kill me. And they didn't ask no further questions.
Right.
They just took that at face value, and they wrote that down, and they used that information as a reason to deny me parole.
Correct. Wow.
It wasn't until 2018, June 24th of 2018, where I went to the parole board, and a parole commissioner done his research, and he asked me about these situations. And now I knew what the situations was.
Right.
And so I was able to recite that poem. I was able to tell him about the situation with the youngster. And I told him, I said, today, I have no idea what that kid had already been through. I used the barbaric attempt to try to change his life. And he believed me. I would have never hurt that kid. But I thought that that was the only thing that would get to his awareness to prevent him from coming. But in my ignorance, I didn't do enough research on how much trauma this kid had already experienced from people he trusted and believed in. And so today I wouldn't use that tactic to help him change his life. And the commissioner told me, you got it, you understand. And then he asked me, did I let somebody spit in my face? And I told him, yeah. He said, why did you let that happen? I said, because at that time, I was in charge of me. I couldn't be in charge of this guy.
So good.
And he said, for that reason, man, I'm going to let you come home. And so I paroled on October the 22nd of 2018. And it was 26 years, 7 months, and 17 days. And my first job was at a paralegal at a law office of Tracy Lum, who was one of the attorneys that represented me. She hired me to work for her, and I was working for her and started doing stuff in the community because I had already said that if I make it home, I'm gonna help.
Yeah.
I didn't know what needed help. I didn't know what I was going to eventually do, but I knew that I wanted to help my community. And I started feeding the homeless.
Mm.
And I would put food in my trunk and I would just go and feed the homeless. And I started running into dudes that I had done time with.
Mm.
And I used to wonder, why did these dudes come in and out all the time? I never really understood why they was coming and going. I thought they didn't like the streets.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized that they didn't have no services out here.
Mm-hmm.
That everything that we thought that people told us was out here for us, it was a lie.
Mm-hmm.
It was just on paper.
Yep.
People were writing about stuff that was provided for those who were formerly incarcerated, but I walked out here and it was none of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started giving them food and finding ways to help them and letting dudes, I went to Nirvana in Modesto
Mm-hmm.
and I chose Modesto because it was the closest city next to Patterson where the law office was at. And I didn't want to live in, this small town.
Right.
And I didn't know if I should go to Stockton yet because, I had heard some things about Stockton and I didn't want to test it too quick,
Mm.
And so I just started doing that. And then I was invited to be a speaker at a Black Student Union graduation. And I spoke and I met Sarah Noguchi there, who was the superintendent of Modesto City Schools. And she asked me if me and my team could do some training for Modesto City school teachers.
Wow.
And at the time, I honestly didn't have a team.
Yeah.
Right. But I had a passion and a drive and I knew how to write curriculum. And so I put a curriculum together in conjunction with a psychologist and we started training Modesto City school teachers. And I mean, it's been phenomenal trainings.
Yeah.
And that what prompted me to start MBS Consulting. And as I started that consulting company, I started training school teachers and case managers who did work with the unhoused community. And my work with the unhoused community wasn't just to give them food. It was to get to know them and reconnect them to their families of origin. And so what I've been doing, I've been able to send individuals back home to their families. As opposed to just feeding them and looking to clothe them and shelter them here.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to find out where they come from. And I believe that the best way for us to rehouse those individuals who are homeless or unhoused is to reconnect them to relationships because it takes a certain level of moral disengagement in order for someone to accept being on the street.
Mm-hmm.
So we first have to morally re-engage them with relationships.
Yes.
And sometimes, people just need one safe relationship to tap back into their own humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And when we tap them into humanity, their own humanity, then they can trust in people again.
Yeah.
And then we help empower their family with resources that can help them learn about mental illness and learn about substance abuse. And they can be safely rehoused with their families of origin who really care about them.
So good.
And so that's what I started doing. And that's what I've been doing when it comes to the unhoused community. And then George Floyd was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like there was more that I wanted to do than just protest, man. I didn't just want to protest because I
Right.
should have been protesting against myself
Mm-hmm.
when I was out there committing crimes and chasing dope and stuff. I didn't protest against me.
Mm.
So what am I just going to protest for? And I don't knock the protest.
You're right.
But for me, it just felt like I needed to do more than that. I've
So
been
good.
given more than that. And so I eventually was asked to do the vigil for George Floyd at Center Plaza, and Josh Harder and they wanted me to MC the vigil, and so I MC'd it. And my first words, man, was that I can relate to Derek Chauvin.
Mm.
I can relate to him. I can relate to hurting people. And I woke up in a prison cell one day and asked myself, why the hell did I do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that he gonna wake up in a prison cell one day and say, well, why in the hell did I do that?
Mm-hmm.
And so who am I to place judgment on him? Because I'm hoping that at some point he wake up and realize that he didn't have to behave that way.
So good.
No different than I woke up one day and realized that I didn't have to behave the way that I was behaving and that I was hurting people. But I realized that I was hurting people because of the hurt that I was experiencing and that he hurt people. He kneeled on George Floyd because of his own trauma.
Mm-hmm.
It had nothing to do with George Floyd.
Right.
And his trauma was present that
So
day.
good, man.
And so I spoke that into existence, and the chief of police and Brandon Gillespie Brandon was the assistant chief and Galen Carroll was the chief at that time. they came and they said, "Man, we appreciate that." And I told them, I'm gonna hold you to that.
Yeah.
And the next day, we met, and I presented a proposal to them for us to do something different. And so I've been training and doing coaching, and doing a cultural relations and community engagement process with
Love it.
Modesto City Police
Mhm.
for 2 years now. We're on our 4th cohort, and I really invite people who are in the city to get in touch with me and sign up to go through this cultural relations course, because what we've been doing is we've been bringing community members in the room with police and having real honest conversation and dialogue and exchange and interaction and perception shifting experiences that change the way that we see each other.
So good.
And it changes, to me, that's the meat and potatoes. That is police reform, a part of police reform that's necessary. I've been taking police into the prison system.
Yeah.
I took uniformed officers back into Valley State Prison, the prison that I was in.
Wow.
We walked in there and they got a chance to reintroduce themselves to incarcerated community members. And it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
The officers want to go back. Got inmates, incarcerated community members are on a waiting list. They signing up in droves to want to have an encounter with police in a way that they never experienced before.
Wow.
I had a youngster stand up in that room one day doing that workshop, tattoos all over his face, crying, saying, "Man, today is the first day I felt like a human being.
Wow.
Like I felt like a citizen."
Wow.
Because an officer sat and had a conversation with him. And he sat and had a conversation with an officer and found out that this officer and him were similar. I had one officer end up meeting a dude, and as an individual, his name was Edgar, was sharing his story about the impact of his crime. He was 17 years old, and he was in a shootout with another 17-year-old. He killed this 17-year-old boy, and it was like 20-something years ago. And the officer sitting next to him turned and asked him, turns out Edgar committed his crime in Modesto.
Wow.
The officers that were there were from Modesto.
Wow.
Turns out that this officer was a rookie cop. He was the second car on the scene of his murder.
Wow.
And now he's sitting next to this officer who can tell him what it looked like after we lived. See, 'cause those of us who have offended people,
Yeah.
we don't know what it looked like after we leave.
So good.
Right?
So good.
And he got a first-hand account of the impact of his choices.
Wow.
And I identified officers as victims of crime, not just responders to crime. Because a witness to violence is a victim of violence.
Right.
And if you're not able, based on your culture, to acknowledge your own victimization, then you are filled with trauma.
Wow.
And as a gang member, I could not acknowledge my own victimization. I had to hide what had happened to me. No different than most officers. Their culture didn't allow for them to not look like they were masculine or a superhero. But even Clark Kent had pain.
Yeah.
As Superman, he can't acknowledge pain.
That's right.
But as Clark Kent, he has pain.
So good.
So if our officers are not allowed to acknowledge their own trauma, then that can make them dangerous.
Yeah.
And it can make them disconnect from the community that they serve.
So good.
And if the community that they're serving can't acknowledge their trauma, then it makes them apathetic towards the law enforcement that is trying to protect them. And so now we have these feuding communities. And so through these workshops, we're able to break that down. And then community members also do a simulations training. So now they have to be an officer.
That's so good.
And they have to put on the belt. They have to respond. And it gains a different level of empathy.
Yes.
For the role that this officer has in our community. And then the officer gets a different role, a different understanding of the community members that they see, even those who make bad choices.
Yes.
Because an officer's role shouldn't be personal. Should be a professional role.
So good.
And so they get a chance to get back to that after they deal with the community in this way. And so that's one of the things that have been blessed to do from that situation. But even doing that, I felt like I wasn't doing enough because that wasn't the prevention work. So I started a nonprofit called Legacy Alliance Outreach. And with Legacy Alliance Outreach, not only am I doing services for formerly incarcerated, but I started youth programs.
Love it.
in the youth program, the reason why we got involved with youth was through Mark Twain. We had got invited to go into Mark Twain because they were
The junior high.
the junior high school. I'm gonna tell you, junior high school is the sweet spot.
Yeah.
That's where the most trauma is
Yes.
happening on the inside of a human being.
Mhm.
Is 12, 13 years old.
I worked at a juvenile hall for 22 years.
Yeah.
And so the epicenter
That's
was
it.
based around that.
So good.
That's it, man. Because you got the hormones waking up.
Yeah.
You got the need for approval and acceptance is at its highest at that stage. And they're just placed around each other.
Yeah.
Sort of like inmates are.
Yeah.
So inmates are just thrown together. And the idea is that somehow some miraculous thing's gonna happen and we're gonna change, right? You know, it's like you put broken people around broken people and expect something to change.
Come on.
And you don't provide them with any services. I believe that our prisons are filled with decent human beings, and this human capital that's being wasted when we don't add the right resources to it. And and so I'm at Mark Twain, man, and so the principal of that time called and asked if I had any solutions. She had heard about some of the work that we've done. She had participated in a couple of trainings that we've done with school teachers, which has been the highest ranked trainings that since they've been tracking it.
Yeah.
Those trainings that we've done, that I've done with Tina Rodriguez, have been the highest rated trainings that they've had.
Love it.
To my knowledge. And she called and she's like, man, we having to expel kids almost daily. They're having riots, right? And do you have anything that you can do to help us? I told her, absolutely. She gave us access to the school, and I took in like about 7 formerly incarcerated individuals and a couple of people who have never been incarcerated but have some clinical experience, and we took that school. For the rest, from the moment we walked in there to the time we left, they didn't have a single fight. No expulsions. No more riots. We had a gang truce up in there because you had dudes that were calling themselves Paw Patrol and Sesame Street. They were really Bloods and Crips.
Yes.
But they were saying that they were Paw Patrol and Sesame Street so that they can like throw the disguise off, right? And
Crazy.
the community around the school had even embraced this truce that was happening, that we got a chance to have everybody vote. We had the kids vote. Even the gang members, we gave them a vote. Secret ballot, right? I showed them how to vote. You know, you're going to vote, and you're going to vote whether or not you want this to be a safe zone or you want it to stay like it is. And even the hardest dudes voted for it to be a safe zone.
Wow.
And we called the vote, and everybody, and it stayed that way. And one youngster that they had told me was the shot caller of the school. The administration had told me that this kid is the shot caller of the school. I told him, y'all ought to be ashamed. This 12-year-old boy, 6'2", right, can barely read, and they calling him the shot caller of the school. But what he's doing is using what he got for his power, because the other kids are gaining power and influence through reading and academic. He can't.
Yeah.
And man, we loved on this boy, man. To this day, right now, he's probably over there at the program, right?
I think I've seen him.
Long story short, man, that's what got us involved in the youth programs. And at the end of the school year, we got them through the school year with no drama. I asked them if they would help fund an after-school program. They told me no. Wow. Took me almost a month and a half just to get paid for that work. We were there without a paycheck.
I heard that.
And so I said, okay, man, I'm not fit to just lead these kids, because now these kids are like, man, because I put a sign-up sheets in, who want to go to summer school? Who want to do the summer program? We had about 120 signups.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, man, I'm just going to invest in myself. So I put my own money into it. I told the staff that I had, I need you to work an hour and donate an hour, because that's all I can afford.
Yeah.
If you can't do it, I respect that. And they did. They worked an hour and donated an hour, and we ran a summer program from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. All summer. Wow. We ended up, man, God blessed us, man, to be able to run. We ended up doing things with these kids that we taught them CPR, sign language. They went camping. We went swimming. I mean, they did stuff that these kids on the West Side and the airport district don't never get a chance to do, because they can't go out of their community.
Right.
They have, some of them was like, Mike, where you taking me to? We can't go over there. We're not supposed to go over there. I say, man, you with me, big dog.
Right.
You can roll anywhere.
Yeah,
it was like, okay.
Love
and
it.
some of them, they would test out the scene,
Yes, sir.
but they went and they stretched their horizons. And long story short, man, we had a phenomenal summer program. And now we've been doing an after school program again. because now they won't let us in the school district.
Wow.
They said our criminal histories don't allow us to go in. And so I told them, do you understand what equity means?
Wow.
Equity for that kid is me,
Wow.
right? And so right now we're not allowed to go into school. And so we've had a dropout rate and suspension rate has been really high. But what we do is we do scouting things now. So right now, inadvertently, I've started a school. I didn't want to start a school, but this same kid that they called the shot caller, they were about to expel this kid because somebody else got into a fight. He wasn't even in the fight.
Wow.
But they assumed that everything that happened at the school he'd know about. So they were blaming his kid, and his mom, struggles with addiction. He's never met his dad. He ain't got nobody to voice. So the mom came to me and asked, hey, can you come to this meeting with me? And so I went to the IEP meeting for this kid, and I'm like, they're saying that they want her to voluntarily just move him to PACE. PACE is gladiator school in our community, if people don't know. And I'm like, she's like, they're like, it's in his best interest, because if he come to school and there's one incident, we're going to expel him and he's going to be out. And I'm like, okay. So mom looks at me and she's like, Mike, what do you think? And I just kept it 100. I said, Mom, they're not speaking in the best interest of your son. They're speaking in their best interest. They are tired. They don't know what to do to help your son. They don't have the resources that they need to help your son. And so they're telling you that it's in your best interest to move him. I'm telling you right now that you got to get your son out of this school before they put him in the pipeline to prison. But sending him to PACE is not his path, right? And she was like, well, I don't know what to do. Then she said, well, I want to virtual school him. They said, we're not going to allow that, because last time he was virtual school during COVID, he did horrible.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what if he had a different environment? What if I created the environment and he did virtual school, but he did it in my environment? They said, we'll allow that. I said, okay. That was the beginning of our school. Right now, I have 9 kids there.
Wow.
And we pick them up at 9 a.m. And most of them stay with us till 6 p.m.
Yeah.
But they technically are out of school at 2 o'clock. And they're virtual schooled or independent students. And some of them, we have found them through going to the store at 10 a.m.
Right.
And we see a kid that looked like he's supposed to be in school. We the type that we gonna ask them a question. I didn't put him, what's up, youngster? What you doing out here? Oh, I'm just chilling. You don't go to school? No, I dropped out. Come here, man. Let me show you what we're doing. And we bring them in and we let them feel comfortable. We find out what's going on at home. And I tell them, man, check this out. If you don't go to school, let me introduce you to one of my partners. And they tell him what it's like for him not to go to school, and he gonna end up getting his education in the penitentiary, right? Because you ain't got too many options if you ain't gonna go to school.
Right.
A couple of girls, young girls that we done seen, looked like they were getting ready to be groomed for that, that thing that they do to girls. And we got them in the school now. And one of the girls hadn't been to school in a whole year. She had not been to school in a whole year. One little young black kid, he hadn't been to school in 6 months because he was being bullied. And so right now we have 9 kids, and I just reached out to a retired school teacher because I know that I'm overmatched when it comes to this area. I had one kid sit in front of me today, wanted me to help him with some math. And I'm like, come on, man. You can give me some reading or something else. Like, come on, let me find somebody to do this math. Right?
I tell my kids, you got till about 2nd grade.
Yeah.
After that, I'm done.
2 + 2. I'm done, bro.
Yeah. And so, but the thing
So
is this,
good.
is that we have to do something different if we want to save our future.
Yes.
And so I don't know why God placed me in the spot that he got me in, but I'm going to do what I can do. My motto is I help no matter what. Right? And I'm a hope dealer because I'm not supposed to be here.
Right.
Everything I got now is extra, right? Because I'm not supposed to be here, and I'm here. And so now I'm running this after school program, and we're doing a school program in the daytime for kids who just can't fit in conventional education. And there's a lot of kids that don't fit. And it's difficult to get the school on board with me because they take offense to what I'm doing sometimes because they take it personal. Instead of caring about the kid, they caring about their own reputation and personality.
Wow.
But I'm one of those kids that fell through the crack, and I was surrounded by those people.
Mm-hmm.
I know the end result of not doing anything.
So good.
I watched it. And so I won't sit still and do anything. And I'm not scared of anybody because I
Right.
don't work for nobody no more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm self-employed, and I'm running these organizations and these businesses and their service industries. And we're not just talking good stuff on paper.
Yes, sir.
It's time for us to be in the trenches with this.
So good.
And so right now, man, I got some kids, man, that just, I love them kids. And I pour out my life to them, and I pour out my pocket to them. And I mean, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
But I'm also running transitional housing for formerly incarcerated because I believe that that's our workforce that's
So
going to help
good.
us save our kids.
So good.
So by getting these individuals who qualify to work around kids, I have some people that come to my house that can't be around kids
Right.
from choices that they made.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't bring them around the kids, but it's other individuals who have learned how to share their story,
Yeah.
who've learned how to be mentors. They know what they've been through,
Yeah.
and they done been through what these kids done been through. And so they're the best ones to save the kids from going through it.
Yeah.
And so I bring them and I pay them, and they help me save these kids. And I believe that these kids are going to help us save our future.
Yes.
And that's what we're doing right now, man. And I just recently got approval. We're gonna be doing. I don't know if anybody've heard of like Homeboy Industries. We
Yeah.
got blessed with the.
Mm-hmm.
Our county is gonna be blessed
Yes.
with a Homeboy Industry
So
type
powerful.
of model
So
in
powerful.
our community that's gonna help our formerly incarcerated not recidivate.
Yes.
It's gonna help us really build up individuals who see. Most people think that people join gangs because they just bad people.
Right.
You don't join a gang because you bad. You join a gang because you scared.
Yes. Wow. So
You know,
good.
you don't join the gang because you bad. You
Mm.
join the gang because you're afraid,
Mm.
or your family is structured in it, and it's the culture of the family, and it's meant for survival, or it's meant for the hustle game. People want to have things.
Yes.
They think that that's how they get it. Until we put a clean glass next to that dirty glass, then the kids don't know what's different.
So good.
So what we do is I try to show them, man, how they can still be cool, have a little swag,
Yeah.
and they can do it some righteous things. You know?
Wow.
And that's where we at.
Wow.
And I bought a couple of poems that I wanted to share with you
go
too,
for it,
right?
bro. Mhm.
And one of them, man, is, this is like, so I have like a signature poem that I've been sharing, man, as often as I can share it, right?
Please.
And it's called We All Lose,
Mm.
right? Because ultimately we all lose. Did you hear the sounds of the gunshots ring? In some minds, when they hear bang, they hear ching, ching, the sound that money brings. Yeah, I know it stings. But if your American dream revolves around the potential death of me, it's obscene. How can freedom ring? We ought to do a sting and wipe out this scheme. Give a gun to him and me, then convince us we each other's enemy. We don't know how to war along party lines. Our communication is too fractured, so we use gang signs. He claims his block and I claim mines. We learned our behavior from you. You taught us, but now you punish us for what we do. Democrats, Republicans, and the Tea Party too.
Mm.
Do you vote for what's true or stand with who you cool with too? Flood the world with guns, you see, then convince us we each other's enemy. To justify the building of another penitentiary. It's so obvious, it's really elementary. But we're too distracted by perceptions to use our power in the elections. We lose our voice before we get to exercise a choice. 16, 17, 18, most times already caught up in the scheme. Sex, drugs, and crime scenes, and it's mean, chasing that green. We really should reduce the guns in our land and make a stand. Yeah, I know we can't get rid of them all, but it's time that we make that call. Our voice we silence when we use violence, spilling each other's blood like it's as useless as mud. Yet we still have some criminals on the street. They make laws with a motive of deceit. No education and no money. Prison is where we meet and greet. It's a cold deceit becoming a part of a quota to meet. Education can protect you from a prison vacation and help revitalize this great nation. And we got to get smart and do our part and catch them younger and motivate the hunger to succeed. Stop feeding the need for greed. We all should water this seed. And as it grows, man, who knows? We might just come up with some solutions rather than continue to battle over delusions while human blood is oozing. Yeah, we all losing. And it's scary watching families forced to marry a cemetery. you know.
Outstanding.
Wow.
Outstanding. I have to pay.
Yeah.
Clap on that one right there, man.
Oops.
Man,
Man. Yeah, I don't know
Okay,
what to
hey,
say,
hey.
man. I'm like,
Now,
I'm
Michael,
done.
I don't know if you've seen any of our episodes.
Man, fire is
this
on
is
you.
officially the least Jose and I have ever talked.
Yes.
And
it's a good thing.
It's a good thing. Yeah. Everybody watching, amen. They finally
Yeah.
shut up.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
but I don't even know where to start as far
Yeah.
as how many times the nuggets just
Yes.
fall out when we hear these conversations, and so much of in your timeline.
Yes.
I mean, there's so much there in your timeline where, you know, there's a root to the fruit.
Yes.
yes.
Why you're angry, why you're upset, why you deny,
root.
why you.
Mhm.
And so when you're telling your story, it's like it starts at this root, and then you just see it growing,
Yeah.
and then we can trace it back, and we can
That's
trace
right.
it back. And I don't even know. I know it's for anybody that's watching, for Patrick Correa to be lost for words, but I really am. I know this is
Yeah.
definitely a podcast we're going to go back and listen to, and whoever's
Yes.
blessed enough to listen to this, take notes.
Yes.
We, but I have a lot of questions,
Yeah.
but I don't think time allows all of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's give us one.
when you, I mean, one of the first things I heard, or two things I want to say. One of the first things I heard was when you got off the bus. I'm going to go way back to the beginning.
Yeah.
You got off the bus and you were going to the cool school, right?
Mm.
And your old friends wanted to beat you up simply out of envy.
That's it.
Oh.
I mean, they really didn't have a reason to beat up, just the jealousy and envy.
Yeah.
And I looked at that root. I just kept a mental note of that envy and jealousy, and I kind of saw what built off of that, and how that their perception of what they wanted in their life but couldn't have not only affected you, but it infected you.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then you started to live this life, and you see it in social media. You see it nowadays. You see it,
Absolutely.
And it, to me, it's just going back to that. You can see where that started. The second thing I want to bring up is when you said you wanted to change.
Yeah.
The first thing you said is when I wanted to change, I had to be honest.
So
That's
good.
it.
And it's that with the honest. It just
So good.
it smacked me in the face.
He's got to use the bathroom.
Okay.
Go ahead, man. This is
Well,
live. That's how we do it. I got to use the bathroom too, but yeah, let him through. Yeah.
We gotta talk with each other. Jose.
Yeah, no, that's good. Hey, this is how we do it live.
Live.
I'll be next.
Okay. So when you look at the word, the honesty,
Yeah.
like that's the starting point.
Yeah.
Like what if there was envy and jealousy
Yes.
early on,
Mhm.
where did that go to?
Right.
But then if you start that with honesty,
Yeah.
where does that breed to? And the third thing that I really stood out, he met these people doing drugs, and he said gave the guy a ride to the hotel.
Yeah.
And there's a guy and girl there,
Mhm.
and he stays up for 3 days.
Yeah. Wow.
And then they had some issues,
Mhm.
right? They had some issues. Hey, we got to get this guy. And then he says this, "Oh, yeah, I'll go with you. We got to do that.
Yeah.
Like we got to go take care of that."
Yeah.
You just met somebody,
Right.
all of a sudden you're a we,
Jeez.
and it goes with the
Mhm.
strength of doing something with somebody else that's same minded.
Yeah.
We don't even have to know each other, but now it's a we.
Right.
But when we flip that,
Mhm.
and let's say we're a believer,
Mhm.
how often have we met a believer just,
Yeah.
within a couple minutes,
Right.
fellowship,
Yeah. We back.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna tag out real quick because this is a good episode. So I'll be right back.
Okay, to you out there listening, I was telling Jose, and I was telling Jose how when you met these people, they give you the ride to the hotel, and you're with the girl and you're with the guy there, and you were up for 3 days, and then they say, hey, we have to go take care of this other guy that did me wrong, and you said we, yeah, well, they can't let them do it to us, and we, those kind of words. You're already bonding with somebody you don't even know because the common denominator is the drugs and is the thug life. And then when we look at it, when we become believers, we kind of flip that, where you meet a believer that you never even met. You're already shaking hands. You're already like, oh man, God bless you. Hey, here's my number, and hey, I love you, man. I'm gonna keep you in prayer, and automatically that same connection. So the Bible says what the enemy had for evil, God's going to use for good. But it's that same characteristic with whoever you hang around. That's what you automatically. You don't need to be around them for a long time to relate to them on that level.
You don't.
Yeah. Once again, there's so much here. And this pod is interesting. It started with no sound,
right?
And
So many distractions.
I was telling a story about how my lawn is so bad. I thought I was going to find a zebra in the backyard, and then this is the quietest me and Jose have ever been.
Right.
There's been potty breaks. I mean, this is one for the records right now. But I think the blessing of what Michael has to say tonight. I think when you have this much of a blessing, nothing's gonna go smoothly.
Come on.
But nothing's gonna go smooth. That means.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, man. One of the things that has been consistent in my life, and I honestly used to dumb myself down because I was afraid of people's envy.
So good.
I was afraid of like being different, and I didn't know that I was supposed to be different. I didn't know that it was okay to be different. Like being sent to that school, I understand my mother's wisdom today, and I'm grateful because I can interact a little bit everywhere now.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, I was ashamed of being smart.
Wow.
I was embarrassed that I went and I was around a different group of people, and I would try to like overplay my black hand, right?
Yeah.
Because I was ashamed, and I didn't know how not to be ashamed. And I had already had all this trauma inside of me. And now these guys, my people, they don't even want me no more. They don't like me. And to this day, I still experience a lot of that envy from time to time because for whatever reason, God has blessed me with some things. He has graced me with some things. And people might think that I think too high of myself, but they have no idea. They ain't living in my head.
Yeah.
But today, I don't care.
Come on.
Right? I used to care.
Yeah. So good.
And today, I choose the people who their opinion about me matters.
Wow.
I don't just let everybody's opinion of me matter.
Mm-hmm.
I choose the people.
So
and they
good.
choose me too, because if you ain't never gave me a pat on my back, you've lost the right to punish me.
That's so good.
If you've never gave me a kudos for something I did right, then I really don't care about your criticism, right?
Mm.
And because your criticism isn't coming from my building, it's coming, and I can listen to even somebody who can't stand me. I can listen to what they got, and I'm going to apply it to myself first. I'm going to see what they say. If what they say is true, I'm going to listen and I'm going to look.
Yeah.
Because I really was never trying to get to prison. I didn't see it coming because I was blind and I was in denial. Today, I don't want to live in denial about anything. And I have some people who are in my life that I offend, right? Just from my breath offends them. And so it's okay for them to be offended. I don't expect to live forever, right? And so some people will hate me to the point of probably want to try to hurt me one day, right? And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because I believe that I'm here for a purpose and I have a mission and that I'm going to fulfill that. When I die one day, I want to be empty.
So good.
I'm talking about empty.
Yeah.
When I'm laying there in that box, it's going to be an empty shell because I'm going to be poured it all out, man.
Amen.
And I ain't asking for nobody's permission to pour it out.
Amen.
I don't need nobody to give me, to tell me it's okay. Now, if I see something that needs to be fixed, man, I'm fixing it.
Yes.
If you don't want it fixed, don't let me see it, right? If you don't want somebody served, if you don't want somebody help, don't let me see them because I'm going to try. They might not accept the help, but I'm going to try to help them, right? And I'm going to try to continue to help myself because I ain't finished.
Right.
I'm still learning and growing. Man, my hardest area of my life is relationship stuff or trying to get to know people, let people get close to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not used to people being close to me. I live alone. I'm not used to I'm not used to having that. And I'm kind of like habituated to that, right? And I like my alone time. I like being around people from time to time, but I still like there's some things about prison that I miss.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, there's sometimes like You know, I be telling some of my guys that that been locked up before. I'm like, man, we need a lockdown, right? You know, I mean, a
I
lockdown meant
hear
that you
you.
had a moment of rest, man. But I got
Yeah.
a couple other pieces of poetry
Go
that I wanted
ahead,
to
man.
share,
Go
right?
ahead, man. We'll wrap it up.
And this is one that this is like the nuts and bolts of spirituality to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus is mighty enough to save a slave or one trapped in a mental, emotional, or spiritual grave. He even defined what it means to be brave because ruthless violence he endured in silence, not because he was weak. An understanding of his mission made him meek. And if you think meek is weak, try being meek for a week. Look into your heart and take a peek. He let them hammer nails through his hands so me and you could have a chance at redemption and revival. We all fell from the womb, dead on arrival. Spiritual disconnected, sinfully infected, neglected, and rejected. Love like this we never expected to receive. Oh, how I grieve. He endured this for me and rose again to set us free. And I believe, oh yes, I believe that his grace is sufficient in the misery it will relieve. He absorbed all my guilt like a quilt and removed the curse with nothing that I must rehearse. Inspiring me to put him first, healed my soul and quenched my thirst. Man, the thought alone makes me want to scream and shout and let it all hang out. But I'll hold my composure. Just know that I told you. Now let him mold you into a righteous soldier. Because your friends, family, and freedom, Satan wants to cheat them, beat them, and then eat them. We have to be an example, you know, a living, breathing sample of the difference between night and day, inspiring them a reason to follow what you say, then tell them, but show them that Jesus is the way. That's my Jesus piece.
Come on, man. Man.
You know,
Jeez. Yellow button.
Mike, I hope,
Jeez.
I don't know if we can answer this in such a short amount of time, but I'm going to challenge you to do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to challenge you to do this.
Let's do it.
So I was, I'm a former atheist, and then I lost everything when I was 30 by my own stupid decisions. And when I was lost everything, I was raised by a Christian mother though, and I said, if you are who they say you are, Jesus, I pray that I have my born again experience.
Mhm.
What I learned is I didn't want it to be off of feeling, because feelings go like this.
Yes.
I wanted to be off truth. And what I realized is every religion acknowledges Jesus, but he's different things to different people.
Right.
So as a Muslim, he's a great prophet,
Mhm.
prophet of miracles. And to, he's different things to different people. So
Mhm.
I guess if you could briefly tell me why the Jesus of Christianity?
So good.
Why?
Yeah.
Because I know that I know that I know that I know that he has given me proof beyond parallel in the intimacy of my own spirit that nobody can take away.
Mhm.
He has communicated with me in a way and at a time that I can't forget.
Mhm.
And he has shown me the purpose for my life. And that he has put his hand on me in a way that I can relate to his feeling. You know, I had an experience while in prison that my stepdad had passed away. And I felt so ashamed for not being there to take care of my mother, his woman, in his absence. And about a week after he passed away, they had his funeral and stuff. 2 days after his funeral, I had an officer call me into the medical part of the yard that I was on. And I've never shared this publicly. But this officer called me into this room, and it was a bowl sitting on the table and an envelope. He said, "Go in there. I'm out here, man. I'm gonna close the door." He said, "Eat that." And you know, COs used to give you a piece of chicken, something every now and then.
Mhm.
So I went and I took the lid off the bowl, and it was dressing and had a piece of turkey on it. I grabbed a spoon. I took a bite. It was my mama's dressing. This officer had went to Chicago to my daddy's funeral. Inside of the envelope was pictures of my family and at the funeral. This dressing was my mama's dressing. I knew the taste. It's a unique taste. You can't, I didn't ate it before. So I didn't had an encounter with Christ before he said that he knew me before the foundation of the earth. So when he came and spoke to me again, I knew it was him. I didn't find him, he found me. And he drew me to him. I didn't want him. He wanted me. And he's found a way to use the mess that I made of my life. And he gave me a message and a purpose to it. And it's unique to me. And I ain't got to fit in nobody's boxes no more.
Come on.
And so that's why. And I don't make nobody else follow him.
Right.
But I want to live in a way that makes them want to follow me.
So good.
Because if they follow me, they're going to be following him.
That's right.
Because I might be the only Jesus they meet. I had a man tell me one time that there was 5 gospels. And he said, no. I said, no, man, it's only 4. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. He said, no, it's 5, man. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in your life.
Wow.
So good.
And so that's why.
Yeah.
And now he has done some things to me, man. And he's done some things through me that are undeniable. And the enemy is still chasing me, though. He don't give up.
Come on, right?
He tries to find another route, another end way. You know, he tries to find another route, another end way. And so he don't care that I go to church. He don't care that I believe in Jesus.
Right. So good.
As long as he can get me to not believe in myself.
Preach. Come on.
He don't care that I believe in Jesus Christ because he believes in Jesus Christ.
Yes.
But if he can convince me not to believe in myself, then he wins.
Wow.
Because if I don't believe in myself, I'm not going to be bold enough to tell somebody the truth. I'm not going to be bold enough to go and reach for that kid. I'm not going to be bold enough to walk inside of a police station. I'm not going to be bold enough to tell a school district that, hey, you're not dealing with this properly.
Come on.
I'm not going to be bold enough. I have to be able to believe in myself.
That's good.
And not become arrogant or high-headed or even worried about people thinking that I'm arrogant because of their perception of me. Right? See, I like to dress fancy and stuff like that. And some people think I'm a show-off. Well, if you wore state blues for 26 years, 7 months and 17 days, you'd probably dress up to take the garbage out like I do.
I wasn't going to ask you about that. Watch you later, but come on.
I told my brother Michael, I said, Mike, I know you dress smooth, man, but this casual, I was like, dress how you feel, man.
You guys can't tell.
I'm coming in sweats, bro.
I got my pajama bottoms on right now. You guys can't see.
You guys see that a little bit. So I was like, man, Mike, you dress smooth. Like, I'm
gonna tell you something. Though. A lot of my clothes when I came home from prison came from thrift stores.
Wow.
I picked wisely though.
Yeah.
Because people put some good stuff in thrift stores.
Sure do.
But I used to wear my state blues and I would crease them. Because my mama told me, you might not always have new clothes, but you can make whatever clothes you got on look good if you clean them and you smell right. And I just put the right combinations on, man. And I'm gonna take you, I'm taking you to my spot. Right? I'm telling you, I got a spot. It's called Maldini's. Right? Maldini's is in Modesto too.
Okay.
That's my boy. He just hired me to start modeling
Come
for
on,
him too.
bro. Come on.
Maldini's is
Maldini's. Go follow him on McHenry, man.
Yeah, Jose ain't modeling for nobody. It's a tall, big and tall store.
I'm married, so my wife got stuck with me a little bit.
Before we close out, is there anything that you want to throw out there? Question?
Yeah, no, I don't have any questions, man. I love spending time with Michael, man, and man, his story is just blowing away, and I want to give him as much airtime as possible. But I do want to give you some flowers, and what we mean by that is, people sometimes don't. They wait till your funeral to talk about things, you know, and I've just known you. I haven't known you like this, man. But from what I got of you and the spirit that resonates with my spirit, I just commend you, man. I thank you because if there was a Michael Baldwin for my father,
I feel you, brother.
Yeah.
things will be different.
Yeah.
He struggled. He did his best, and I honor him. I do. But you're stepping into an arena, and I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. You're a gem in this community, and I'm gonna hold on to you, you know, and I honor you, bro.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
I received that, man, and I want you to know that I'm not under no illusion that the role that I have in my life now places more scrutiny on me,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of pressure,
Yeah.
and I'm not strong enough to handle it,
Come on.
and I don't have to be.
Yes.
So anybody who expects perfection out of me,
Come on.
then you're missing understanding, right?
Yes, sir.
Because I come from the trenches, and I got 2 more poems
Go
that's
for it,
short
man.
that I
Go
want to
for it.
share
Yeah.
because, and this ain't for the weak at heart. This one here is because I was born in the trenches.
Let me share. So you've touched a couple things on what
Yeah.
people think, and hey, I'm moving forward, and I'm going to get scrutiny, and we've said something on the podcast before, and it's a saying that says, no matter how good a person you are, you're the enemy in somebody else's story.
That's so
right.
good.
And so I think we have to remember that sometimes.
Absolutely.
We can do everything, and no matter how good a person we are, we're the enemy in somebody else's story. So just keep moving forward. I think let's wrap it up on this poem. I can't wait.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Right. I was born in the trenches, and I'm all bruised up from jumping over the fences that others tried to cage me in. Some were fake friends, and even my next of kin lied to me and said they'd do or die till the end. They really couldn't care for me. They just wanted to mold and shape my identity and the range of my expectancy, not realizing that I was born in the trenches, and I'm all scarred up from jumping the fences. So I'm calloused in certain places. In other spots, you'll see no traces of what I've been through. So if you're not careful, you'll end up trying to break me too, when I needed to open my soul to you. The smile you see is because the beast in me is at peace, you see. He growls and grunts and occasionally might pull some stunts, but he's still full of dignity. He merely rages when he needs to help me shake the cages and push through those difficult phases and stages. I definitely don't need no pity. Hell, as a baby, I didn't even want to suck on my mama's titty. I didn't want to be needy, so I became witty and gritty so I'd never be accused of pity. You got to know that I was born in the trenches, and I'm all scarred up from jumping those fences that others tried to cage me in. I really want to be open up to a lover and a friend, but only if they can come and hang out in these trenches that I'm in.
Yeah.
Let's clap.
Oh man.
Come on, Jose.
I'm falling. I tell you, I can sit here all night with Brother Baldwin, man.
How is
Thank
that
you,
not,
brother.
how is that not on some
Get in the mic.
TikTok with
Yeah.
your voiceover?
Hey, get there.
Because I ain't learned, I ain't learned how to do that stuff
Yeah.
yet. Right?
Man, hey, the
Yeah.
voiceover on this. The voiceover on this. We
Right?
yeah, we're gonna
See,
make it
I've
happen.
been waiting.
We gonna
I've
make
been
it
waiting
happen.
on some people to show me how to do that.
That's right. Hey,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
watch this pod and you want to these amazing poems
Yeah.
spoken over people's lives and over man.
Yeah.
I mean, you usually see it over somebody working out,
Right,
You know,
yeah,
working out. Like,
exactly.
that ain't got nothing to do with what he just said, man. But no, man, it's because in the trenches. Like, no, what are you doing? That's not the time. But teach
So
teach his own. Just,
God
Yeah.
bless you, brother.
so God,
Yeah.
but man, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
So such a great podcast.
Yeah.
This one for the record.
It
for the
is,
books.
man. It
we don't
is.
remember this.
It is.
Yeah. Talk about
Yes.
this at the end of my life, man.
Yeah.
Remember that one time,
Yeah.
40 years, hopefully 40 years ago,
Yeah.
but, where
Yeah.
we had to take pee breaks and we couldn't.
Jose crying.
Everybody's crying. Man.
The joy of the Lord hit the room now, man.
Yeah. Hey, let's go ahead.
Yeah, man. Well, I want to thank you, Brother Baldwin, man, Michael Baldwin. If you need to get in contact with him, there's 2 scanners there on your screen. You can reach out to Legacy Outreach on the top left above Patrick. And in the middle right there, you can scan for any consulting information if you're looking for ways to get connected. Go for it, Mike. Yeah.
And we are doing a project for the Love Modesto.
Yes.
We're going to have, it's called Love Legacy.
Okay.
We're going to be doing some cleaning and renovating on 140 Calavera Street.
There you go.
So we're looking for as many people to sign up for that as possible, man. We want to show it's called Love Legacy, and it's with the Love Modesto.
Awesome.
There you go.
Jose hires people to go out to do those things. So the guy that's doing his house, he'll send them over there.
Let's go.
He'll send them over there, man.
Hey, man, there's a reason behind all that,
Thank
man.
you.
But
Thank you, guys.
I'm still facing my trauma with that.
We want to thank you so much. Let's give him a hand.
Yeah,
Thank you, brothers.
Well
All
done.
right.
Well done. Thank you guys. And
Yeah, I need y'all to just hear this song, and we're gonna close it out. But next week, next month, we'll have another special guest. We believe that is living out the mission. Stanislaus, Latino Chamber of Commerce CEO Johnny Garcia will be with us on May,
Johnny.
doing some great things with the community as well, man, and just living out the mission of Journeyman. And so, man, well done. Well done. We'll see you all May the 11th. God bless you.
But today we must take a wider look. Because of modern communication and modern technology, the whole world has become our neighborhood. And we are demographically moving closer and closer to each other, and we've become a neighborhood without becoming a brotherhood.
Journeyman is a platform where men can lay down their titles, grow together, learn from each other, and be accountable to each other. Many of us deal with several problems throughout our lives, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. At times, we may feel alone in our troubles. However, Journeyman is a space where you can feel safe expressing yourself with other men that are on the same path. Journeyman is a space for people like myself who never thought they would be living purposefully in their life.